Trump wins. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Donald Trump has been elected for a second term as President of the United States, becoming the 47th president when he will be inaugurated in the new year. At the time of recording this, he has achieved 279 votes from the electoral colleges, as opposed to 223 for Kamala Harris, thus meaning that he has surpassed the 270 that are required to win. Certain states have yet to declare. Though it's expected that he's going to succeed in Nevada and Arizona and quite possibly Michigan. Nevertheless, it's moot. He has won. And there will be those of you who are delighted at this news. There will be others of you who are dismayed by it. And there will be some of you who don't care. But nevertheless, it is important to analyse, in the context of his narcissism, his reaction and behaviour to victory, and also to consider what will follow in light of this. Again, I make it clear for the hard of understanding that by describing him as a narcissist, it is simply analysis of what he is. You can make your own minds up as to whether you think this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm simply going to explain to you how he behaves, why he behaves the way that he does, by reference to his evident narcissism, which I have explained in detail previously. I watched his address that was given from Mar-a-Lago earlier this morning, when I think it was 2:30 a.m. in Florida, as it became evident that he was likely to win. And although he hadn't quite got over the 270 threshold, he wasn't far away when he, along with his various members of family and supporters, came on stage to provide a victory speech. In so doing, of course, the news that he was going to win provides him with fuel. It is a reaction, and the fact that millions of people have voted for him and have endorsed him provides him with a spectacular amount of fuel that makes him feel very powerful indeed. Naturally, he is powerful because he's going to be the President of the United States again. But at that point in time, he has that feeling of power as a consequence of the reaction that millions of people have chosen him. It provides him with validation as to his existence. It fills up the chasm that exists. Walking onto that stage, it enabled him to receive the proximate fuel from the thousands of people that were gathered, that were cheering him, that were chanting USA, that were there to herald his victory. The fact that they were all there for him, although many of them were tertiary sources, still means that because they were proximate, it received a massive amount of fuel as a consequence of their proximate reactions. The potency of their fuel is weak, but because it's multiplied many thousands of times, the cumulative effect of it all is substantial. He was, of course, in generous mood, and this enabled him, well fueled, to declare various shout-outs and thank yous to his inner circle. This included Elon Musk, and he praised Mr. Musk as a genius we must protect. And he did so after giving a detailed rundown about watching a SpaceX rocket land after a launch. That little anecdote was interesting in itself, because he explained that at the time he was talking to somebody rather important, and stated that I'm just going to put you on hold whilst I watch this rocket land. The fact that he puts that person on hold in order to watch a rocket land shows that sense of entitlement, and he also admitted that basically he watched it for 45 minutes, and that person waited for 45 minutes. That's part of his grandiosity, treating somebody that way, but also then recounting it as part of an anecdote to those that are there listening to him. He also invited Dana White to the stage to offer thanks, and he also offered thanks to Theo Von and the Nelk Boys. It's interesting how the nature of the media has changed in terms of who he thanks by way of support. He thanked his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, and got him up to say a few words. He, of course, provided fuel to Trump by describing it as the greatest political comeback in American history, which may well be accurate, but it still doesn't detract from the fact that it is a lovely piece of fuel sent in the direction of Donald Trump. Thereafter, Trump said that God spared him in his assassination attempt and said that he had plans for him in this second term, promising to turn things around. Believing that God was there protecting him is not only part of the culture in relation to this individual, but is also part of his grandiosity. It would appear that at the time there wasn't any phone call from Vice President Kamala Harris to concede, even when most outlets had already declared Trump as the winner. Naturally, it's going to stick in her craw, but that's a separate consideration as to the impact upon her. This video is about Donald Trump. For Trump, it's validation of who he is. One of the advantages that Trump has is that he has a huge amount of self-belief, which, of course, is a very necessary quality when you're a politician. He is going to face repeated criticisms, some of them justified, others of them not. He's found himself subjected to what has been described as lawfare, smearing by various media outlets. Some of his behaviour, which are a matter of evidence, have been utilised to criticise him. In other instances, there has been the skewing of evidence or its fabrication. But either way, whether the truth has been thrown at him or a mistruth has, he is invariably continued in his bombastic fashion, which is the type of narcissist that he is. And this is part of his attraction, of course, the fact that he continues, the fact that he is industrious, the fact that he believes in himself. I explained many years ago that what is great for Donald Trump will be great for the United States, because the United States is an extension of him. And whilst he has always gone by the phrase of "Make America Great Again," what has actually happened is that America has made him great again by re-electing him. It provides him now with the opportunity to assert control not just over the United States, but around the globe. A huge amount of power, which translates into control. The fuel that's on offer to him is immense as a consequence of the reactions, not only as he will continue into his presidency, but around his victory, which he has proven to be the candidate that most people voted for, and therefore, irrespective of what you may say, as per democracy, he has deserved the victory. It will enable him access to the various character traits and residual benefits. And therefore, to a narcissist such as Donald Trump, it was an opportunity for him, in his victory speech, to lavish praise around him. He was able to be generous in victory because people are naturally painted white as a consequence of the support that they have provided to him. He also knows enough that it's the appropriate thing to do, to give thanks. There was a lot of his hyperbole and the superlatives with regard to amazing and brilliant, etc. It's the way and style of his speech which again appeals to particular people, and he has been consistent in that regard. But for Donald Trump, the victory provides him with a huge amount of fuel, and the circumstances of it provide him with validation with regard to him being right, because of course in the world of Donald Trump, he is always right. But what next? Well, of course, there is a delay before he takes the reins of power again in the White House. But unlike in 2016, when his win was seen as something as a surprise and preparations were, to put it mildly, rather chaotic and marred by infighting, this time around, he has a fully formed plan for what he's going to do once he holds the reins of power in 2025. He's already stated that his agenda is going to involve rapid and aggressive action to target illegal immigration. And in his own words, he spoke about his second term being nasty a little bit at times and maybe at the beginning in particular. This is Trump speak for the fact that he doesn't have a problem getting his hands dirty, which again demonstrates a level of effectiveness on his part, but also that when certain individuals and organizations are going to come up on his radar, he will remember what has been done to him, and therefore is likely to take action against them to settle scores. It's not so much that he wanders around bearing a grudge, but rather that when certain individuals come back on his radar, his narcissism causes him to remember that this person is painted black, that they have done him dirty, that they have been obstructive, that they have sought to cause him problems. And the type of bombastic and belligerent narcissist that he is, he has no problem whatsoever settling scores. Accordingly, the Department of Justice comes under his oversight, which has hitherto provided him with considerable problems. And it's clear that he is going to undertake a root and branch gutting of not only the Department of Justice, but the US government as a whole. He plans to use sweeping executive orders, the assertion of control, to replace thousands of career civil servants, and he'll use political appointees in their place. Those individuals will have been vetted to ensure that they subscribe to his political ideology, i.e., he's going to put in place people that will support him, which enables him, of course, to maintain control. I should imagine that large swathes of the Department of Justice will be done away with as a consequence of the lawfare that has been waged against him. And, furthermore, the Department of Education is going to be completely abolished. He will be looking at ensuring that he can control the Department of Justice, stocking it full of his allies. And what is interesting is that he has been indicted 4 times, and he'll take office as a defendant in 2 federal criminal cases that have been brought by the prosecutor Jack Smith. He has been pursuing Trump for some time, and Smith has been working to have a case that has been dismissed reinstated. In the run-up to the presidential election, Trump told the radio host Hugh Hewitt that if he regained the White House, he would fire Mr. Smith within 2 seconds. Threat. He predicted that he wouldn't face any repercussions for intervening. And he stated, "I don't think they'll impeach me if I fire Jack Smith." Accordingly, it would appear to be the case that Smith is going to find himself removed. He will come up on Trump's radar. He's viewed as a threat to control, and he will be dealt with. Trump has also pledged to exercise control over the Department of Justice by securing the pardon or release of convicted rioters serving sentences for their roles in the 6th of January attack on the Capitol in 2021. The exercise of his power to aid those that have supported him, i.e. those that are painted white. Trump also hasn't ruled out instructing federal prosecutors to commence legal proceedings against those who fail to follow his direction or to fire them. He hasn't ruled it out and hasn't expressly stated he would do this. He simply stated it would depend on the situation. He was also asked about whether he would go after Joe Biden and his family, and Trump said he would be inclined not to do it, although, of course, that doesn't rule it out. And given what he has endured with regard to the repeated prosecutions, when certain individuals are going to come up on his radar, I would see that he would be very much in the mood for a form of revenge against certain individuals, seeing that now he holds the reins of power, that he will exact that revenge against them to nullify the threat to control posed by those behaviours towards him. He's vowed, of course, to finish the wall, and with it looking like with Congress going to be controlled by the Republicans and the Senate already having been controlled by the Republicans, it appears that he'll be in a position to fund a substantial border security package, which would enable him to complete the signature wall. He's also spoken about instituting the travel ban again. He said, Remember the famous travel ban? We didn't take people from certain areas of the world. He said it would be extended to include refugees from Gaza. We're not taking them from infested countries. Accordingly, there are other factors with regard to cutting taxes. He's proposed widespread changes to taxation, including extending the child tax credit, bringing back the deduction for state and local taxes, and cutting companies' corporate tax rate for domestic production. Of course, he does have a decent record with regard to the economy, something where Biden has struggled with cost of living and inflation having risen, which has made much of the electorate has had a miserable time over the last 4 years, which to my mind has contributed to part of the reason why Trump has been elected and the Democrat nominee, Kamala Harris, has not. There are other aspects in relation to her which have meant that people didn't get behind her, but that's a separate discussion. He's also going to ramp up tariffs and has suggested that there might be 100% tariffs on Chinese-made products. He wants to redress the trade balance. And as he spoke at his victory appearance, when at that stage he was president-elect, he spoke about the necessity of healing, but wanting to ensure that America was put back on a great footing. He means that when he says it, because as I've explained, it's an extension of him. And the difference this time around from when he came to power in 2016 is that there's a greater level of preparedness. He also has the experience of having governed for that 4-year period, and he also has a list of things that he already wishes to implement, some of which I've touched on there, which enables him, of course, to assert his control through those things. But also, there is a long list of individuals that have caused him problems over the last few years, and he will be rooting them out. Not so much as a vendetta, but rather the fact that they will make an appearance on his radar by virtue of being in situ, incumbent in particular positions, and he will look upon them, and because they're painted black, he will take action against them to nullify the threat to control that they pose. And in many instances, this will either be through the institution of legal action or simply dismissing and firing those affected individuals. It will be an interesting time. There will undoubtedly be further opportunities to analyse his behaviours vis-à-vis his narcissism. But Donald Trump has won the election, and it's worth talking about the effect it has upon him and what those early steps will be. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.